Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, the show that is part of the Simply Luxurious Life online destination. Visit the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com, to find the show notes for each podcast episode, as well as much more weekly content to elevate your everyday and deepen your contentment. From recipes, motivational posts, videos of the cooking show series, style and decor inspiration, French and British inspired content, and the reader's favorite regular weekly post, This and That, which goes live on the blog every Friday. Now to today's episode. Welcome to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables. And whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a café au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 286th episode of The Simple Sophisticate, and welcome to the start of the 7th season of the show. Today's episode is going to be inspired from a book that I've been wanting to read for quite some time, and I dove into it this summer, and then dove into it a little bit more at the end of the summer. And I just felt with all of our time online, especially now in the world we live in for all sorts of reasons, that this might be helpful to help navigate successfully and productively into this new fall season where many of us, our schedules are ramping up, but in a different way. And so we're adding new stresses into our life. But also by incorporating this discussion into our lives, we hopefully will deepen our contentment and find a peace that may seem elusive or impossible to attain, but actually can be attained if we have the right ideas and the tools to attain it. What am I talking about? I'm talking about comparison, comparing ourselves with other people, anything outside of ourselves. So what we're going to talk about today is how do we let go of that comparison? And in a simple general answer, it is to heal ourselves. In the title I wrote, Heal Thyself, but it is truly this powerful choice to realize so much of what can create more contentment is to focus on what it is we're actually doing that obstructs the ability to find that peace. And it has a lot to do with comparison. And for me, as I'm going to go through today's episode, what I discovered as I was writing it and reading through it and preparing this is that some of these comparison things that we are doing are not seeing this comparison initially on first glance. We don't realize we're doing them. And so it actually, just bringing it to our awareness, we deepen that understanding and we can help ourselves out. So that is the topic of today. But before I get to that, as always, we have a Petite plaisir at the end. And it is three books that I'm excited to share with you. And if you've been following me on Instagram, you know, or I've already heard about these books, and even on This and That, these are just books I absolutely recommend. And I want to make sure I get them here on the podcast for my listeners who tune into the podcast, and maybe you just don't stop by the blog as frequently. This is a book you're going to love. So, well, I shouldn't say that. It's a book I loved, and more and more people are telling me that they've enjoyed it as well once I've recommended it to them. So let's get to today's topic, how to let go of comparison. Heal thyself. I'm going to share a handful of quotes today. Some of them are just from random sources that speak to this truth about comparison, but a lot of the quotes I'm going to share are going to come from the book, The Comparison Cure, that inspired today's episode. But first, I want to start with Mr. Mark Twain, or Samuel Clemens. He states, "Comparison is the death of joy." Simple statement, but let's dive into that. The thief of joy, if Mark Twain is right, is of our own making. The good news in this revelation reveals each of us can take back our joy. Comparing ourselves to others occurs consciously, and as I mentioned at the top of the episode, unconsciously as well. Consciously, we may be acutely aware that we follow certain people on social media to see how we are doing in relation. Unconsciously, when we choose not to speak up, to set a boundary, that is comparison. And I'll break that down as we go through today's episode. When we set a checklist for our life, delineating what should happen when and by what age, that is comparison. That is not helpful as well. And I'll break down what that means exactly further down into our conversation. Each of these three are examples of many more ways that we compare beyond ourselves, some knowingly, some unknowingly. And while comparison is a primal instinct for survival, the good news is that evolution and civil society have provided the opportunity and arguably the necessity for each of us to offer the world our unique talents, rather than limiting ourselves to remain a part of the herd or the tribe. The habit of comparison is a learned skill, and therefore it can be unlearned. However, it must be a conscious choice to do so. Fundamentally, when we compare ourselves with others, some part of us believes we are not enough, or some part of us needs to be reassured that we are enough just as we are. Today, I'll be examining a handful of areas of our lives in which comparison can creep in and become destructive to our contentment and a fulfilling life. And then I'm also going to share how to let go of such comparisons with the outside world. So let's get into that list. The first one is focusing on our life goals and our life journey. Here's a quote from Brené Brown. Owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing we'll ever do. Brené Brown's quote speaks beautifully to the need for us to let go of the timeline checklist that we may have put in place for our lives. This is not to persuade you to let go of setting goals, but rather to examine who such goals are actually benefiting. If the outcome enables you to be accepted by a particular group in your personal life or in society, then this item is a checklist item that is being attended to out of comparison. However, on the flip side, if the outcome fulfills something within you that enables you to exercise your talents more fully and share them with the world, then such a checklist item is definitely a keeper. So largely, and you'll see this theme throughout all 5 items we're going to talk about today, letting go of comparison requires us to be aware. A lot of self-awareness, a lot of reflection, a lot of conscious attention to why we do what we do. And that requires of us also to slow down, give ourselves time in our lives and in our days to think about what we're doing and to not just be that robot. So number 1, or the first one on our list today, is comparison when it comes to our life journey and our life goals. Number 2 is the social environment, or who surrounds us. Here's a quote from The Comparison Cure by Lucy Sheridan. Nobody at your table, and what she means by table is your life, should inherit a seat, be there by accident, or simply have a place because of the time you have known each other or because they are popular with others. End quote. A significant reason it can be extremely difficult to be ourselves with and around others has to do with who the others are. From my own experience, one reason I thoroughly enjoy living on my own and being in my own company has to do with only needing permission from myself to be and do what comes naturally or piques my curiosity without worrying what others think. However, that worry sprung out of life experience when I was myself around others at a younger age. And so it is when we're young children, we don't know that doing something that was naturally part of who we are or who we were or innately drew our interest, that then would prompt a dismissal or scorn or laughter to tease and to suppress from others toward us, that was a reflection of an unhealthy relationship. We could not know that as a young kid. We don't understand that yet. It's not a reflection of doing something wrong. However, at that age in our lives, we choose to shift, we edit, we adapt, we dismiss who we are. We hold back from sharing it with the world. This is natural in the sense of it's about social survival. But when we are adults, we are now adults, we now know more, and we can return to embracing who we are and have always been, even though we may have kept it under wraps or hidden away for fear of laughter, teasing, or dismissal. Again, these are all conditioned fears based on our past experience, and not everyone has had that experience in their past or in their youth. And some of us have had more than others. But again, it's the awareness to acknowledge, well, why am I uncomfortable saying this, doing this, being myself? What was it that conditioned me to feel that way? So where do we begin? We set boundaries. In episode 126 of this show, boundaries are discussed in detail, and I've provided a link to that show on the show notes today. The reason to establish your personal boundaries is because when we don't, quote, we give away our time, effort, the potential for fun and creativity, end quote, as Lucy Sheridan reminds in her book, The Comparison Cure. And when thought about through this lens, motivation to set boundaries becomes easier. Because if we know by setting boundaries, we're going to increase the quality of our lives, increase the fun in our lives, increase the ability to be creative and tap into all that is within us that wants to be expressed, then it becomes easier to say no or to not be treated a certain way. It's not easy, but it does become easier. So if you too are someone who finds comfort in your own company, however, wants to welcome people into your life, yet fears being unable to be yourself if you do so, be patient with yourself. Build the skill of setting boundaries, and when you do, you will begin to meet and then know with confidence who you can welcome into your life so that you can continue to be fully yourself, free of comparisons. Setting boundaries will reveal underlying truths of all of your relationships. On the plus side, it will show you who does respect you and who listens to what you are saying, no or yes, or I can't do this, whatever it might be. And they understand with regards to honoring who you are. Some will push back, and it will reveal why they were friends or built a relationship with you in the first place. In other words, your social community may shift when you begin to set your personal boundaries, but it will shift for the better. And it will begin to open up room for the right people and the right experiences to enter. So that's the second way that we can look at how comparison needs to be examined in our lives and let go of. The third way that comparison can hurt our lives and how we can improve it is in our intimate relationships. And this is a quote from RuPaul, and he says, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else? Direct and to the point. I love that. On the other side of comparing yourself with others is accepting and appreciating where you are in the present moment, as well as appreciating and accepting where others are in the same present moment. When we look outside of ourselves for validation, for example, how should I be dressing with regards to the trends? What should my home look like? When should I get married? What day of the week is it okay to go to bed early? And what I mean by this, and it may sound silly, but when we apologize to others or tease ourselves for habits that we love and that improve the quality of our lives, i.e. going to bed early, we invalidate our choice. These are all examples of looking for validation, looking outside of ourselves for approval. And you are comparing yourself because you're saying, well, what should I be doing? Is this okay in the eyes of society? We have not found contentment when we do this. We have not found contentment within ourselves. We have not found contentment when we look outside of ourselves for validation. We have not found that peace within ourselves. And therefore, we are seeking outside validation. And that is what comparison is all about. And that is why it's detrimental. And so basically what we're doing is we're asking the world, the outside world, to tell us that we are okay. And if they say yes, then we keep doing that thing, even if it's not truly who we are. And if they say no, we adapt. We change our minds, we change our habits, but it's not because of who we are. It's because we want to be accepted. Such seeking is not loving, and it's not an acceptance of ourselves. This habit of seeking outside validation makes it extremely difficult to accept others as they are if they don't fit into our expectations of what they should be and should do, which makes it difficult to build loving, respectful, and secure relationships because you're not letting that person be who they are. Not only have you not let yourself be who you are, You're not going to let other people be who they truly are either. And part of that is a control mechanism. You're trying to control something outside of yourselves, and we can't do that. It's not possible. Some relationships, and we're talking romantic friendship and all sorts, are meant to go the distance when both people want to be there together and they can also be themselves. But some are not meant to go the distance. And that's the uncertainty part of all that. And that's the disconcerting part of it, but that's the part that you need your security within yourself. You need to accept who you are so that no matter what relationships go through, as far as how long they last, you know your home base is secure, and that's you. I cannot recommend more highly this book I'm about to share with you for improving our ability to be more loving to ourselves and thereby be able to be a healthy partner in a relationship. And it's called How to Be an Adult in Relationships. The title can't be more direct and revealing. I will be exploring more of the topics that are shared in this book in upcoming episodes, but I've provided a link to it on the show notes. I read through that this summer, highlighted the heck out of it, had some good conversations about it with other people, but I cannot recommend that more highly. How to Be an Adult in Relationships. And it's going to start with you and then how you engage with others. All right. Now I have a few sponsors for today's episode. I'm going to share those with you, and then I'll come back with the last 2 ways to find comparison happening in your life and discuss how to let it go. Perhaps you've heard about a company making stylish, sustainable shoes and bags made for your life on the go. They're carefully crafted with eco-friendly materials like repurposed plastic water bottles and marine plastic. We're talking about Rothy's. Rothy's shoes are incredibly comfortable with 0 break-in period thanks to their seamlessly knit-to-shape design. With many chic styles to choose from, Rothy's shoes are the perfect pair for any adventure. The newest Rothy's styles include brand new bags, masks, and their first adjustable sneaker. Rothy's shoes and bags come in an ever-changing array of colors, prints, and patterns. Vogue even calls Rothy's a personal obsession, and Health magazine says they're the most comfortable shoes on earth. Now, I can share that I have a pair of Rothy's. They are a pointed toe flat, and I have been wearing them when I was in school teaching to work through my 9-hour day, and they were extremely comfortable and stylish. I have been wearing them since when I go on errands, and I've even thrown them in the wash, as these shoes allow you to do, and they look as good as new. So why not choose a company to welcome into your closet that is sustainable and stylish? Rothy's has kept over 60 million single-use plastic bottles out of landfills and transformed them into their signature thread, which is then knit into beautiful, sustainable projects. So why don't you check it out? Visit rothys.com/simple. That's Rothys, ROTHYS.com/simple. Style and sustainability meet to create your new favorites. Head to rothys.com/simple today. If there is something that is preventing you from achieving your goals or living the life that you want to live, BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. Connect in a safe and private online environment that is also convenient, as you can start communicating in under 24 hours. This is not self-help. It is professional counseling. You can send a message to your counselor at any time. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses. Plus, you can even schedule weekly phone sessions or video sessions, all without ever having to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room. Now, BetterHelp is committed to facilitating a great therapeutic match, so they make it easy and free to change counselors at any time if needed. Now, this is also more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available no matter where you live. BetterHelp is there for their clients worldwide with a broad range of expertise available, which may not be locally available in many areas. So search for a licensed counselor in a variety of specialized areas such as anger, stress, anxiety, relationships, trauma, grief, self-esteem, LGBT matters. Anything you share is confidential, and it's convenient because it's on your schedule, on video or phone sessions. So many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. Now, as a simple, sophisticated listener, I want to help you start living a happier life today. So you're going to get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/simple. Join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/simple. It's hard to find eco-friendly cleaning products that actually work, but Drops has finally done it. With over 10,000 five-star reviews, you'll see in no time how great their products are. Better yet, Drops delivers the powerful clean you need right to your door in eco-responsible packaging with carbon-neutral shipping. All pods are dosed exactly for your needs, so you never overpour or overpay again, and you can sign up for auto shipments to save big. And you can also pause, skip, or cancel at any time. Simply go to dropps.com and use the promo code SIMPLE30 to get 30% off your first order. Now, Drops are entirely manufactured in the United States, and they are never tested on animals. Drops offers custom cleaning solutions for every need: sensitive skin and baby laundry detergents, stain and odor laundry detergents, laundry scent booster pods, as well as dishwasher detergent pods, wool dryer balls, which I love and actually have been using them for more than a year and continually appreciate the simplicity as well as the reusability of them. So whatever your needs are for laundry or dishwashing, look to Drops for eco-friendly cleaning products that work and work well. Visit drops.com and use promo code SIMPLE30 to get 30% off your first order. So welcome back. Our fourth way to find comparison and then therefore let it go and improve your life is in your everyday life with regards to contentment. This quote comes from Betty Jamie Chung, and she states, "Comparison with myself brings improvement. Comparison with others brings discontent." In 2012, I shared a post about competing with others, and I linked it on today's show notes. And it reiterates this idea that comparison with who we are, who we were yesterday, as I like to say, is good. It helps and brings improvement. But when we compare ourselves with others outside of ourselves, that's when discontent happens. Comparison with others is a form of competition with others, and it drains, it exhausts, it depletes. It is never a positive effect on our lives. Even in sports, you can only do your best. Even though technically you are on the field, the court, or the stage competing with others, it actually doesn't matter what they do. What I mean by that is it is your engagement to present your fullest capabilities that will determine the outcome. Be motivated to improve upon yourself, but do not denigrate yourself for areas you wish to strengthen. What I mean by that is just because someone else is better than you doesn't mean that you should feel bad about yourself. See that as an opportunity, if you want to grow in that area, to be motivated. View it as a model of what talented abilities they have to say, okay, how did they acquire that? What can I learn from them? Can I talk to them about this? Maybe they can be my mentor. Maybe they can just simply be an inspiration instead of letting it bring you down. The component that must be present in order to compare only with ourselves and not the outside world is a strong self-confidence. In episode 5 of this podcast, confidence and the strength it brings into our lives is explored, and I've linked that in today's show notes, episode 5. Just as comparison is a learned skill, acquiring and attaining self-confidence is a skill as well, a skill worth acquiring for a contented life. However, once we have acquired self-confidence, we must not stop exercising it, as it will atrophy if we just think it's going to forever be there after we've done the work once. Our lives change. New experiences arise, and therefore we are challenged to navigate well through each of the events and engagements with others, and they're new and they're different than we've ever experienced before. Our confidence can be shaken and questioned and challenged during those times of experiencing new things, new people. And that's why we must exercise it as though it is a muscle, because in many ways it is. So first of all, let's talk more about self-confidence. Lucy Sheridan points out that self-confidence is a key step in ridding your life of comparison, as it gives you agency over your actions and ownership of your thoughts and behavior. What happens when we don't have self-confidence? Let's start with when we lack it. When we lack self-confidence, Sheridan shares that words go unsaid. We don't speak up for ourselves. We don't share ideas. We don't set boundaries. Literally, we don't say things vocally. Also, ideas go undeveloped and they're not brought to fruition because we don't believe in our ideas. We don't believe in ourselves. And so we don't strive forward and give it a shot. And lastly, the infinite time we have is spent on the wrong priorities with the wrong people because we don't have the courage to pursue or find out what are the right priorities, who are the right people to be in my life. So that's when we lack self-confidence. So how then do we exercise and become more confident? How do we put it out into the world so that we can get rid of comparison? Here's the list to really dive into, again, from the Comparison Cure. Number 1, speak your truth in person. In other words, you may have emailed something to someone saying you can or whatever, can't do something. You may have texted someone that, but saying it in person is powerful and exudes self-confidence. And we'll talk more about how to say it because that's also part of it. But saying it in person is how you exercise self-confidence. Number 2, keep more of your secrets. In other words, have a private life. We often share more because we are seeking outside approval for our decisions, our lifestyle, etc. More likes does not equate to more self-confidence. Rather, it is often a reflection of needing to strengthen one's self-confidence. Number 3, plan ahead. Do the necessary work ahead of time to perform well, to acquire the desired outcome. Whether it's in your job, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's in projects, things take time. But it is during the time leading up to the outcome that is going to determine if it's a successful outcome. Number 4, be present in the moment you find yourself. When you choose to be present, you reduce or eliminate worry about the future because you're not in the future. You're in the present. Giving your best now in this moment will enable the next moment, tomorrow, the future, to have the best chance of revealing what you wish to see. Next one, check in with yourself regularly. I really like this one. I read this again and again and again because she's right. And I was basically, after I read this one, I started to go back in my own life when I made decisions, whether in my personal life or in my work life. And I started to think, oh, that's why that happened. That's the change that happened. And the reason that it did is because I wasn't feeling da-da-da-da-da. So here we go. She says, check in with yourself regularly. Sheridan shares a helpful exercise for examining tasks you keep putting off. Journaling her answers to the following questions. Here we go. Is this still important to me? Why? What, if any, are the benefits of continuing with this task or goal? What's my next right step? I do like this one because if we keep putting something off, there is a reason why we keep putting it off. We may know we need to do it. We may know that it has to be done. But when we examine why, there's probably a barrier that we feel we have no control over, or there's a feeling or emotional passion that's lacking or is waning or is shifted. And when we examine that, we can then ask ourselves deeper questions, telling us whether we should continue to pursue this route or not. And that's speaking about the benefits. Well, why am I doing this? If it's to get your paycheck, then you'll probably keep doing it, but you might tweak how you do it. Change your approach, change your schedule, change how you work, whatever it might be. But if you don't have to do it, when you let something go like this, you open the space up for something new to enter that better aligns with who you really are. The next one, choose hope and let go of expectation. In other words, practice non-attachment to the outcome. And last on this list, communicate powerfully and effectively. Sheridan coins the phrase calm power. Delivery is equally as influential as the content of what you are sharing. First, know your audience, because when you're trying to speak to someone and convince them of something or to convey strength or to set a boundary, it's not about you. You already accept the boundary. You already know what you want. You're already convinced. It's more important to know who your audience is, about who you are trying to communicate with, because you need to understand what their motivation will be to get them to engage in what you desire. Second part of this calm power is to maintain your credibility. You do need to apologize if it's warranted. That will build your credibility if indeed it was necessary for you to apologize. But don't be constantly apologizing, because that is also a detriment of someone who's constantly comparing themselves, wanting to be accepted. And also the calm power comes from eliminating the, as she describes it, the fluff, the huff, the puff, and the fuss, end quote, that is unhelpful and dissuades from the desired outcome. In other words, be clear about what you're trying to say and say it in a calm, effective manner. So that's number 4, how to go about your everyday life. And that has to do with bringing in self-confidence, exercising that muscle, because when you have self-confidence, you eliminate or reduce significantly the comparison trap. Last but not least is to strengthen your self-worth. Here's a quote from Dolly Parton. Find out who you are and do it on purpose. Sounds simple. And in fact, it's simple. It's just not easy. But once you find it out, it becomes far easier. Each of us is born with self-worth and possesses it our entire lives. However, we often lose track of this truth along our life journey at some point. Let this be your reminder. You innately possess self-worth. Nobody can take this away from you. Simply put, quote, having self-worth is knowing who you are and being okay with it. It's the result of deep inner work, increased self-care, self-love, and self-acceptance, end quote. Lucy Sheridan goes on to say, quote, note that possessing self-worth does not necessarily mean having to reach and retain a constant sense of joyful ecstasy, but it is at least a gentle, palpable appreciation, end quote. As I describe it, knowing you have self-worth, consciously knowing this truth, is to bring the ability to be content in your everyday life. It is a grounding, and it enables your self-confidence to come forth in all that you do and in each interaction that you have in a calmly powerful way. For a detailed post on how to strengthen your self-worth, read a post I wrote that shares 10 ways to do just that, and that link is on the show notes. Living a life free of comparison with the outside world becomes a habit after a conscious decision to make it so. A few simple ways to consciously start letting go of comparison in your personal and work life are to become selective about who you follow on social media. Choose to only follow accounts that are heartwarming and that positively challenge you, that are healthy in their entertainment, and pique your curiosity to boost the quality of your life. This next idea is don't feel compelled or required to follow your friends or family online. So they may have Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all these other things, but you don't, just because you're related to them or that you're a dear friend with them in real life does not mean you have to follow them. And when you don't, it doesn't mean you don't care for them. You can be a good friend and family member offline only. Let them have their space online. Let them do what they want to. That's who they are. Let them be that. And this will help reduce the urge to compare. Third idea is to let go of perfection. And I've linked a detailed post all about the reason to let go of this detrimental habit. Next, put an out-of-office message on at all times or an auto response. Now, you'll need to tailor this to your profession, but this immediately establishes boundaries of your work time and it manages expectations in our culture of immediacy. I really do like this idea. Even though you're going to have emails coming in, this can ease your mind because you know you're not responding immediately. They're not going to expect you to respond immediately because you've given them, when you'll respond and whether or not you will respond. if they can answer the question on their own, you've given them direction to go to find those answers. Next, check emails 2 times a day for an allotted amount of time and abide by it. The inbox will never be 0. So create a labeling or flagging system for yourself that alerts you to emails you need to address. Set up a folder system that provides a space for you to put emails that you don't want to erase but want to have out of your inbox. Your out-of-office message or auto-response message will provide the space and time to respond properly and effectively on your schedule. So again, you're setting boundaries here, as an example, in your work life, and therefore you're not comparing yourself to what others are doing. You're putting in place what works for you and the job you have to get done. Next, surround yourself with people and situations that curate an environment that enables you to thrive, grow, be challenged as a way of growing and give back. In other words, really think about who you surround yourself with. And we've talked about this a few times on the podcast and the blog, but our environments, in this case, it's the people, truly do have a significant influence on the quality of our life. Last but not least, a tip for helping you start to let go of comparison, become comfortable with saying no. We know that time is finite, so become clear about what you can do, what you need to do, and want to make time for so that you can do what you enjoy partaking in or spending your time doing. The work of letting go of comparison is a practice in making space for a life of deep contentment and fulfillment. It is a life that will resonate most strongly with you and may not make sense to others. But those who love you, with whom you have communicated powerfully, yet respectfully and calmly along the way, they will be there to share it with you, and their lives will be shared with you also, free of comparison and full of celebration and appreciation. Now, if you want the show notes, want to find those lists that I've included in our conversation today, you can go to the show notes, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 286, and you'll find it all there, links to outside posts and links to the book that I recommended if you want to dive deeper in, because she has all sorts of additional tips and ideas in the Comparison Cure, Lucy Sheridan. So if you want to pick that book up, that is linked as well. But now we have a Petite plaisir to get to, and I'll be right back with that. This week's Petite plaisir is a set of 2 books, and with an upcoming 3rd book that I cannot recommend more highly. They are just laugh out loud, lovely to read, to sit back and enjoy just for 20 minutes or 10 minutes each day or each evening. It is the memoir by Sean Bythell, and the first book he wrote is called The Diary of a Bookseller. Bythell is a bookstore owner in Wigtown, Scotland, and he has owned this shop since about 2000. So for almost 20 years, he's owned this bookshop. And this is his first book, The Diary of a Bookseller. And it just literally is a diary, so to speak, of every single day of an entire year of the people that come into the shop, his friends, his coworkers, or his, I guess you could say not his coworkers, he's the owner, they're the workers for him, and his life in this small town. He is witty, he's pithy, and his humor is absolutely dry and consistent throughout. Let me just give you an example. I'm going to read 2 entries to you, and he'll tell you too how many books he has sold, how many books he's found, because he goes to individuals' houses when they want to sell books in their homes. And here we go. This is from April 8th, Tuesday, April 8th. Online orders 4. Books found 4. At 10:15 a.m., a woman walked in and roared, "I am in my element! Books!" Then continued to shout questions at me for an hour while she waddled about the shop like a stately goose. As Gogol describes Stadovich's wife in Dead Souls, predictably, she didn't buy anything. Andrew arrived at 11 a.m. and worked until noon. He managed to finish the C's in the crime section. Just as I came downstairs from making a cup of tea, a man came to the counter with a copper bracelet from the table of antiques in the shop and asked, "C'est combien?" Quite why he chose to speak in French, I have no idea. He wasn't even French, he was Scottish. Elliot arrived at 4 p.m. and promptly removed his shoes. Within 5 minutes, I had tripped on them twice. 4 customers commented on how fat Captain had become. Captain is the cat. The shop was bustling all day, but I managed to finish dead souls despite this. Till total, £451 and 41 cents and 33 customers. So it really is just a listing, an enumeration of things that happen, and you get to know the characters, and you get to know, as we said, Captain is the cat of the shop. And it's fun just to see how it goes about. You also get to see what books he discovers, books he's reading, and books that he has found in other people's homes that they've sold to him that he brings in, and what sells in the store, which is fascinating. And then there are ones, and that one made me chuckle, of course, but then this one, again, you're going to get to know him, and by this point, you really know him. And this one had me roaring out loud when I was reading on my front porch this summer. This is this is Thursday, November 13th. Online orders 4, books found 2. Ran down the stairs at 8:55 a.m. to answer the telephone, which had been ringing for a while. En route, I managed to spill tea all over my crotch. I reached the telephone to be asked, "Do you know what time the next bus for Wigtown leaves Newton Stewart?" Wrote groveling apologies to the 2 Amazon customers whose orders I couldn't find in the hope of avoiding negative feedback. As I was attempting to put up a poster up in the shop for the random book club, I noticed that the staple gun didn't appear to be working, so I tested it on my hand, at which point it decided to work. Till total, £34, 50 cents, 3 customers. So yeah, I was laughing at the end of that entry. I mean, that's the dry part of it. Just very direct, declarative, no exclamation points anywhere, just matter of fact. Anyway, this is the first book, and it came out a couple of years ago, 2017, 2018, The Diary of a Bookseller, and it did so well. He wrote a second book, The Confessions of a Bookseller, that came out this last April. I read that. It's exactly the same as this lovely book. I highly recommend it. It takes off the year right after this book was written. So this was written it takes place in the years 2015, and that one follows up after that. And then he has a new book coming out this November, The 7 People You Meet in a Bookstore. And some of you have told me, and I now know this too, the woman he's dating in this first book, her name is Anna in the book, is Jessica A. Fox, who wrote The 3 Things You Need to Know About Rockets, a Scottish fairy tale, which is a memoir of her time and life and relationship with Sean Thyself. A little bit different take. They're no longer together, still good friends though, and she's still writing, but she was the inspiration to get him to start writing his memoirs. And they're doing very well, and they've both been optioned for a series or a movie. So that might come to the big screen or the small screen here in the next couple of years. And you also might just find yourself wanting to go to Scotland and go to his bookstore, which there are many bookstores in Scotland, in this particular town, Wigtown. All right, so the book is called The Diary of a Bookseller by Sean Thyself. I'll provide a link to the show notes. I'll provide a link to the books, all of them, and covers on the show notes. And I think if you're looking for a book that isn't too serious, but is well written, light, you can read a few pages every day and not lose track of the story because it's a diary. I think you'll really enjoy this. I've had people of all ages say they've enjoyed this book after I've recommended it. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's Petite Plaisir, where each week ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each episode where I'll recommend a book, a film, a show, a recipe, anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. Before I wrap up today, I want to take some time to send out a bunch of thank yous. Just in the last couple of weeks, a bunch of reviews have come in, and I want to thank you all so much for reviewing this show. I know we've been in a hiatus a little bit this summer because of everything that's been going on my schedule, which was completely planned. But we're diving into the new season, and I want to start off with expressing a lot of gratitude because without you, this show wouldn't have been presented to many new listeners. This review comes from Jen. She's a longtime reader of the blog. And thank you, Jen, for taking the time to write a review. She writes 5 stars. Shannon's calm, thoughtful, and beautiful voice make listening a pleasure, not to mention the content of this podcast will absolutely delight you. Everything from lifestyle to living your personal best life, all with fun and sophistication. Shannon feels like a friend who covers her trips to England and France, as well as bringing those memories back home and how we can all employ the finest yet simplest things in life, plus a million other things. This is hands down my favorite podcast. Shannon has truly elevated my life. Thank you, Shannon. Well, thank you, Jen. I really do appreciate your longtime readership and engagement. Your kindness is greatly appreciated. And Andy wrote, awesome, 5 stars, awesome podcast, can't stop listening. So thank you, Andy, for tuning in. And then we have from Lacey, 5 stars. I love listening to Shannon. She is sweet and funny. You will feel like she is a good and interesting friend. The content is strong too. You will learn something interesting with each podcast. It's both inspirational and practical. I love her book and movie recommendations too. They're always spot on. Thank you very much, Lacey. I always have fun finding those and sharing those with you on the Petite Plaisir. This next review comes from Jo Jin Mai, and they wrote, the best podcast, 5 stars. I discovered this podcast through an influencer that I follow who recommended it, so I listened to it and fell in love. Since I first listened to it, I've gotten a lot of important lessons to my life, but also fashion and home decor inspiration, which I love. So I'd say this is a magnificent all-in-one. Jo Jin Mai, I do hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. They are from Colombia, and I just want to say thank you for taking the time to demonstrate how much breadth listeners can discover when they tune in, but all in the vein of cultivating a life of quality over quantity. So thank you very much for leaving a review. This next review comes from Australia, Art Deco Dreamer. They wrote, a simple luxury, 5 stars. This is a daily treat and escape for me. Starting or finishing the day with a nice walk and some styling or lifestyle tips is almost therapeutic. It makes me want to go back to France, but at least I can relive the memories whilst listening to the French episodes. Thank you so much, Shannon, for giving us this gift. I want to thank you for the gift of your time, interest, and listenership. To everyone who tunes in, you have so many choices. I deeply appreciate your time. So I'm excited for this new season. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you too are enjoying the show and want to leave a ranking or a review, it really does help new potential listeners, discover what this show is all about. Wishing you a wonderful first week of September, and I'll see you next Monday with a brand new episode. Bonne journée. Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, visit the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com, or pick up my latest book, Living the Simply Luxurious Life, Making Your Everydays Extraordinary and Discovering Your Best Self, now available on Audible and wherever audiobooks are sold, as well as in paperback and ebook versions. You can also pick up my first book, Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, A Modern Woman's Guide, which is also available in paperback, ebook, and as an audiobook as well. To stay caught up on the most recent episodes of the podcast, blog posts, the cooking show, and receive exclusive news as well as an extra dose of inspiration to jumpstart your weekend, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Life's free weekly newsletter, which arrives in your inbox each Friday to enjoy with a hot cup of tea or cup of morning coffee. Until next Monday, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Bonne journée!